The chamber of the Galactic Council was the grandest place ever built in the known universe. Thousands of species filled the curved seats that rose like waves toward a glowing dome. Blue lights ran through the walls, humming softly like the pulse of a living starship. In the center, one small platform waited, and on it stood a human. Commander Elise Ward of Earth stood alone before the galaxy. Her dark uniform looked plain beside the shining robes of alien dignitaries. Behind her eyes was exhaustion and quiet fear, but her voice, when it came, was steady. "Honored Council," she began, "we come before you not as conquerors but as survivors. Our world has suffered from the solar flare catastrophe. Our oceans burn, our cities crumble, and our people—" A low ripple of laughter broke through the hall. From the high seat, the Archon of Varn raised a glittering hand. "Humans," he said, his voice translated into 1,000 tongues, "always speaking of their pain. You destroy your own world and now seek pity from those who tame the stars." Elise's jaw tightened. "We only ask for protection," she said quietly, "for a chance to rebuild. Earth has resources, workers, knowledge." "Primitive knowledge," another alien snapped, a tall being with crystalline skin that caught the light. "You cannot even leave your own system without borrowed engines. Why should the Council waste ships on you?" More laughter followed, cruel and echoing. Elise stood still, her heart pounding in her chest. Around her, the alien delegates whispered, sneered, and mocked. She had expected resistance, but not this open humiliation. "The Council denies Earth's petition," said the Archon finally, his tone dismissive. "The humans will remain independent and irrelevant." The words echoed across the hall like a verdict. Elise wanted to speak again, to shout, to tell them how wrong they were. But she saw their faces, amused, superior, unfeeling, and she understood. This was not just a refusal. It was a message. Earth does not matter. The guards escorted her out of the chamber. As the doors closed behind her, she heard the laughter rise again, sharp and hollow like the hiss of air leaving a dying star. Outside, the corridor was silent. 2 human officers waited. Lieutenant Park and Dr. Sarah Voss. Their faces were pale. "What did they say?" Park asked. Elise walked past them, her steps heavy. "They said we're on our own." In orbit above the alien world, the Terran diplomatic cruiser Solace waited quietly. As Elise stepped aboard, she removed her badge and looked at the planet's shining surface below. Billions of lights sparkled like jewels, the heart of the Galactic Union, a heart that had no space for Earth. "Transmit the report," she ordered. "All channels." "Yes, ma'am," said the comms officer. "Message will reach Earth in 6 hours." Elise stood by the viewing glass, watching the endless night of space. Somewhere behind those stars was her home, broken, polluted, struggling. She thought of the children living under red skies, of the farms turned to dust, of the desperate broadcasts calling for aid, and now all hope was gone. But beneath her sorrow, something else began to grow, a spark of anger. "They laughed," she whispered. "They think we're weak." Dr. Voss looked at her with weary eyes. "We can't fight the galaxy, Commander." "Maybe not," Elise said, "but we can make them remember us." The ship drifted silently away from the Council's planet, its engines dim to avoid attention. In her quarters, Elise played the Council's recording again. Every word, every laugh, every sneer echoed through the speakers. She replayed it over and over until it no longer hurt, only burned. Far away on Earth, the message arrived. It spread across networks and colonies, igniting fury in every human heart. News anchors struggled to stay neutral, but their voices trembled with emotion. "The Galactic Council has denied aid to Earth," one broadcast said. "They called our world unworthy." In factories, miners and workers paused their shifts to listen. In schools, teachers turned the broadcast off when students began to cry. Soldiers on lunar bases watched silently, fists clenched. Within 24 hours, Earth's governments met in secret. The Sol Accord, the treaty that once united humans for defense, was renewed. Old flags were lowered. A new one rose, a blue flame on a white field, the symbol of defiance and hope. Elise was summoned to the command room. The faces of leaders filled the holotable, each one grim and determined. "You did what you could, Commander," said the president of the Earth Coalition. "Now we will do what we must." "What do you mean, sir?" He leaned forward. "They laughed at us, Elise. Let's see if they'll still laugh when they realize what humans can do when we're desperate." And just like that, the tone of humanity changed. Factories that once made ships for trade began producing armor and rail cannons. Research labs shifted focus from agriculture to energy weapons. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt came alive again, their engines humming. The Terran Navy recalled its scattered fleets. Old enemies, nations that hadn't spoken in decades, began working side by side. Humanity had begged for mercy and been mocked. Now the galaxy had awakened something far older, far more dangerous, the human will to fight. On the Solace, Elise stood before her crew. "The Council thinks we are begging children," she said. "Let them think so. Let them laugh," her voice hardened. "Because when we stand again, we won't ask for help. We'll give a warning." The crew remained silent, the air thick with tension. Outside the viewport, the stars glimmered cold and distant. Yet somewhere among them, the first sparks of human vengeance were already forming. For now humanity was silent. But silence in the human heart was never peace, and it was the sound before the storm, and the storm was coming. Weeks passed after the humiliation at the Galactic Council. The laughter of the aliens still echoed across every communication feed. News networks replayed the scene again and again, how Commander Elise Ward stood alone before 1,000 alien leaders while they mocked her plea. To the Council it was politics. To humanity it was an open insult. Across Earth the anger burned like fire beneath the ashes. People who had once disagreed on everything now shared one thought. Never again would humanity beg. In the underground command center of Geneva, the Sol Accord met in secrecy. The great powers of Earth, once divided by borders, sat around the same table. Screens showed images of alien fleets and trade routes, each representing a civilization that now looked down on humankind. Admiral Marcus Rourke, a man with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles, broke the silence. "They believe we're finished. They believe we're helpless. That's their mistake." President Alana Saren leaned forward. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" Rourke's voice was calm, almost cold. "We don't need their pity. We need time. Time to prepare." The room fell silent. Then Elise Ward spoke from the far end of the table. "We don't have time," she said. "Their fleets are already moving. The Council won't stop at denying us. They'll control us. The next time they come, they won't bring diplomats. They'll bring soldiers." Everyone knew she was right. The Council called it observation, but in truth, alien ships were already mapping Earth's orbit, scanning defenses, and establishing routes for aid convoys. Humanity had seen this before in its own history, one power offering help before taking everything. Rourke rose from his seat and pressed a button on the hollow table. A new image appeared, an enormous shipyard hidden inside the asteroid belt. "This is Project Phoenix," he said, "a classified operation under the Terran Navy. We've been working on it for years. Clandestine ship construction, AI-assisted targeting systems, experimental engines. It's incomplete, but with proper funding and unity, we can finish it." Elise stared at the hologram. "If the Council finds out, they won't," Rourke said. "We'll move faster than they can imagine." That day, humanity made its choice. Earth would no longer plead. It would prepare. Factories once silent came alive again. The same factories that had built colony transports decades ago now forged starship armor. Cities that had fallen into despair glowed again under new purpose. Scientists who had once dreamed of peaceful exploration now designed weapons to match alien firepower. Underneath the oceans, submarines were converted into mobile labs for energy research. On the moon, mining outposts became hidden fortresses. In orbit, satellite arrays that once broadcasted entertainment now monitored alien transmissions. And deep within the asteroid belt, Project Phoenix began to rise. Huge mechanical arms assembled ships the size of mountains, each designed for one purpose: to protect humanity, whatever the cost. Rourke inspected the first hull himself. "You'll be the beginning," he whispered, running a hand along the cold metal. The ship's name glowed on its side, HNS Vengeance. Meanwhile, rumors spread throughout the galaxy. Alien merchants whispered that Earth was arming itself. Council analysts dismissed it as impossible. "They can't even stabilize their economy," one alien senator said. Let them play with their toys, but others were not so sure. Intelligence reports began to vanish. Human trade ships stopped appearing in known lanes. Probes sent toward the Sol system went missing. Something was happening behind the blue star called the Sun. Inside the council hall, arguments erupted. Some demanded sanctions on Earth, others wanted direct occupation. The Archon of Varn silenced them all. Let them prepare. They have no army that can stand against the Union of Worlds. Far away on Earth, Elise listened to that broadcast replayed by a human spy. Her lips curved into a small, bitter smile. Let's make sure they keep believing that. On Earth's surface, people began to change. The humiliation had united them more than any treaty ever could. In every city, from New York to Nairobi, from Moscow to Mumbai, volunteers joined the new Terran Defense Force. Old soldiers returned to service. Young engineers signed up for off-world construction. Even farmers offered food for the workers building ships in orbit. Children in schools drew pictures of stars with Earth's flag rising above them. For the first time in history, humanity had one voice, one goal, and one shared fury. Dr. Sarah Voss worked day and night in a laboratory beneath the Pacific Ocean, leading a project to design new reactors capable of feeding the massive warships. One evening, as she watched plasma arcs surge through the test chamber, she said quietly, "They thought we were begging, but maybe we were warning them." 3 months later, the first fleet of prototype ships left the hidden docks. Their dark hulls reflected no light. Their engines whispered instead of roared. They could vanish from scanners, slip between sensor nets, and strike before the enemy even realized they were there. Admiral Rourke named them Ghost-class destroyers. Elise Ward watched them rise from the void, her heart both proud and heavy. "So it begins," she said. "Do you think they'll come soon?" asked Lieutenant Park beside her. "Oh, they'll come," Elise replied. "Arrogance makes them blind. They'll want to remind us of our place." She turned to look at Earth glowing blue beneath them, but this time, we'll remind them of theirs. Back in the galactic capital, a secret council meeting took place. Reports showed human ships clustering in asteroid fields and military activity in Martian orbit. The Archon leaned forward, irritation flashing in his crystalline eyes. "Send a patrol fleet to the Sol system. We will inspect them." The council chamber echoed with uneasy murmurs. None dared to challenge him. When word reached Admiral Rourke, he stood before his officers in the war room of the Vengeance. "They're sending their hounds," he said quietly. "Good. Let them see what we've built." He looked at the officers gathered around him, young men and women from every nation of Earth, faces filled with determination. The galaxy thinks humanity is weak, but they've forgotten what desperation makes us become. The officers saluted. The order was given. Within hours, the fleet went silent, every light dimmed, every signal muted. Hidden among the asteroids, humanity waited. The alien patrol ships entered the system unaware, scanning empty space. Rourke watched the display, his voice a whisper. "Let them laugh one last time." Far beyond, the stars glittered, peaceful and unknowing. Yet something in their light seemed to change that night. The old peace of the galaxy trembled. For the first time in centuries, alien admirals began to feel fear again. Fear of a species that had nothing left to lose. Humanity had stopped pleading. Humanity had started preparing. And soon the galaxy would discover that Earth's silence was not surrender. It was the warning before the storm. The cold darkness of the asteroid belt had never felt so alive. Between chunks of drifting rock, hidden lights flickered. Dockyards, repair bays, and silent fleets waiting in the shadows. Humanity had become a whisper in the void. For outsiders, the Sol system appeared quiet, but inside that silence the storm was gathering. Admiral Marcus Rourke stood on the bridge of the HNS Vengeance, his eyes fixed on the holographic map of the solar system. Dozens of icons pulsed red and blue, Earth's hidden fleets, supply routes, and listening stations. Around him, the air hummed with energy and tension. "How long until the alien patrol crosses Mars orbit?" he asked. 26 hours, Admiral," replied Lieutenant Park. "Their course is direct, no attempt to hide." Rourke nodded. "They don't think they need to hide." He turned toward Elise Ward, who now served as Earth's senior envoy aboard the flagship. Her calm face hid the storm in her heart. "If they fire first, we strike without mercy," Rourke said quietly. Elise looked at him, her voice steady. "They already fired when they laughed at us." In the command center of the Galactic Council, chaos rippled through the delegates. Reports from the border fleet spoke of human interference. Communications jammed, ships vanishing near the Sol frontier, and sensor ghosts that appeared and vanished like phantoms. "The humans are hiding something," hissed the Archon of Varn, his crystalline eyes flaring. "They cannot be allowed to defy us." A younger alien from the outer colonies spoke nervously. "But Archon, their system is far. Our fleets are stretched." "Maybe. Enough," the Archon interrupted. "Send the Tarnak expedition fleet. Show them their place." And so it began. Days later, the alien armada appeared on the edge of the solar system, a force of 200 warships, their hulls shining with energy shields and banners of the Council Union. Their leader, Commander Vraylor, viewed Earth's system with disdain. "Primitive planet," he said. "Barely worth the fuel we spent coming here." He ordered his ships forward, confident that resistance would be minimal. His fleet approached Mars' orbit in perfect formation, but as the first ships crossed the red planet's shadow, their sensors flickered. A static hum filled the channels. Then, without warning, all long-range communications died. "What is happening?" Vraylor demanded. "Unknown interference, sir. Magnetic disruption. Impossible. There's nothing out here but rocks." And then the rocks moved. From behind the asteroids, black ships emerged, sleek, angular, invisible to sensors until the last second. Their hulls glowed faintly with blue energy. The Ghost-class destroyers had arrived. The first human volley struck without warning. Rail cannons fired molten slugs faster than light. Missiles cut through space like silent comets. Explosions blossomed across the alien fleet before they even had time to react. "Shields failing," shouted an alien officer. "We're taking heavy—" His words vanished in static as his ship disintegrated. Rourke watched the battle unfold from the bridge. His voice was calm, cold. "Hold formation. Don't pursue. Make them bleed, then vanish." The human fleet fought like ghosts. They struck from shadows, disappeared into radiation fields, and reappeared on the enemy's flank. The aliens fired blindly into the dark, their scanners useless. Within an hour, half their fleet was gone. The rest tried to retreat. Elise stood beside Rourke, her voice quiet but firm. "Send them a message." Rourke nodded. A channel opened. Across the alien frequencies, a human voice echoed, her voice. "This is Commander Elise Ward of Earth. You laughed at our plea. You mocked our need. Now, you face our silence and our strength." The channel went dead. In the galactic capital, the council chamber fell into uproar as the news arrived. The Archon of Varn slammed his clawed hand against the table. 50 ships destroyed by humans? An aide stammered. "Reports confirm, Archon. They use stealth technology, unknown type. Our fleets, they never saw them." "How is that possible?" the Archon shouted. "Their world barely survived a solar flare." A cold voice from the shadows replied, "Perhaps you underestimated them." It was the archivist, the same elder who had whispered to Elise during her first plea months ago. Humans have a history of surprising their enemies. Meanwhile, across Earth and its colonies, news of the victory spread like wildfire. Screens everywhere showed the same image. A single Terran ship standing against the alien fleet wreathed in blue flame. Crowds cheered in the streets, chanting the words that soon became humanity's cry. "Never again shall Earth kneel." In shipyards across the system, production doubled. Workers sang while welding armor plates. Scientists slept beside their labs, pushing their inventions faster than ever before. Humanity had tasted victory, and it was intoxicating. But not everyone celebrated. Elise stood alone in her cabin, staring out at the stars. She knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The council would not forgive humiliation. When Rourke entered, she didn't turn. "They'll come back with more," she said softly. "They will," he replied. "But so will we." She faced him, her eyes filled with determination. "Then we must be ready to fight not just for survival, but for respect." Rourke smiled faintly. Respect is earned in fire. Weeks later, intelligence drones captured transmissions of alien fleets gathering at distant sectors. Dozens of worlds pledged their support to the Council's cause. The galaxy was preparing for war, but humanity was no longer alone. Some alien races, minor ones long oppressed by the Council, began secretly sending data to Earth. One message from a reptilian race called the Kiern read, "You are not the only ones who were mocked. Strike hard, humans. We will watch and follow." Elise read the message aloud in the command room. "They're afraid," she said. "Not of us, of what we represent." Rourke nodded. "Then let's give them something to believe in." Project Phoenix reached its final stage. The first Terran dreadnoughts, massive ships 3 kilometers long, came online. Their hulls shimmered with adaptive plating, their cores powered by experimental antimatter reactors. They were the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built. When the HNS Horizon, the first dreadnought, ignited its engines, the blast lit up the dark side of Mars like dawn. Every ship in the fleet saluted. Admiral Rourke stood on the bridge, eyes glowing in the reflection of the monitors. "They thought we were begging for help," he said. "Now they'll beg for mercy." Elise whispered beside him. "Let's hope we don't become what they are." The Admiral's gaze hardened. "Sometimes to survive the monsters you have to roar louder than them." Outside the viewport, the stars shivered in the distance. The humans of Earth had awakened, and the galaxy was starting to understand what that meant. The storm had gathered. The silence before the war was over. Humanity was no longer a forgotten voice among the stars. It was a rising thunder, ready to strike. The dawn over Mars never looked the same after that day. The sky, usually silent and red, now shimmered with trails of fire as fleets prepared for battle. The hum of engines echoed across the surface bases. Soldiers, scientists, and engineers stood side by side, watching the black silhouettes of dreadnoughts rise into orbit. In every command center, one phrase was repeated again and again: "Today, Earth stands." Admiral Marcus Rourke stood aboard the HNS Vengeance, staring at the countless ships forming above the planet. Fighters, destroyers, cruisers, and dreadnoughts, each one a symbol of human unity and rage. The blue flame insignia shone proudly on every hull. Humanity was no longer hiding. The storm they had built in silence was ready to break. "Status of the fleet?" Rourke asked. 75% combat ready," replied Lieutenant Park. "The rest will join within the hour." "Good," Rourke said. His eyes hardened. "They'll be here soon." And he was right. Scanners flickered as massive alien signatures appeared beyond Jupiter's orbit. The Tarnak fleet, reinforced and enraged by their previous defeat, was returning, this time with reinforcements from across the galaxy. Over 300 alien warships, larger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever faced, entered the system. In the galactic capital, the Archon of Varn smiled coldly as the reports came in. "Erase them from existence," he ordered. "Let the humans learn what happens to those who defy the Council." The battle began in silence. Human and alien fleets faced each other in the black void between Mars and Jupiter. For a long moment, nothing moved. Both sides waited, sensors locked, weapons charged. The stars seemed to hold their breath. Then, from the human flagship, a single message was sent. "You laughed at our plea. You will not laugh again." Seconds later, the void exploded. Missiles streaked across space like shooting stars. Laser beams carved through darkness. Railgun rounds slammed into alien shields, tearing them apart. The first minutes were chaos. Explosions blooming like fiery flowers. Debris scattering across the void. But this time, humanity fought differently. Rourke's fleet moved with precision, every formation coordinated by advanced AI. The dreadnought Horizon unleashed a supercharged plasma burst that split an alien cruiser in half. Human stealth ships flanked from the sides, cutting supply lines and isolating command vessels. Inside the Vengeance, alarms blared as the ship shook under enemy fire. "Shields at 60%, shouted Park. "Maintain position," Rourke ordered. "Target their command carrier." The main cannon fired, releasing a streak of blue energy that struck the alien flagship head-on. The explosion lit the battlefield brighter than a sun. Cheers erupted through human comms, but the victory was short-lived. From the rear of the alien formation, new ships emerged, siege-class battleships, enormous constructs armed with planet-buster cannons. Their first volley shattered 3 human destroyers instantly. Elise Ward gripped the edge of her console. "We can't hold if they reach firing range of Mars." Rourke's voice was firm. "Then we won't let them." He turned to the comms officer. "Order all strike wings to engage. Every fighter we have. Tell them, This is humanity's stand. Thousands of Terran fighters launched from their carriers, forming a silver wave that rushed toward the enemy. The pilots spoke their last words into the comms, not with fear, but with pride. For Earth. For the children back home. For every laugh they threw at us. The alien fleet fired everything it had. The sky filled with beams and explosions, but the Terran fighters kept coming. They darted through enemy formations, releasing EMP torpedoes and magnetic mines. One pilot, callsign Echo 7, rammed his ship directly into a battleship reactor, sacrificing himself to destroy the enemy vessel. From the bridge, Elise watched in awe as the battlefield became a storm of courage and destruction. "Admiral," she whispered, "they're not fighting for orders anymore. They're fighting for pride." Rourke nodded. "Then we've already won no matter what happens." Hours passed. Both fleets burned. Dozens of ships were gone on each side, but humanity refused to yield. Then, as if the universe itself paused, a signal cut through the noise. An emergency broadcast from Earth. Alien reinforcements detected. Estimated arrival 2 hours, the second wave was coming. If they couldn't end this battle soon, Earth would be defenseless. Rourke made his choice. Activate Protocol Eclipse. Every officer turned toward him in shock. Elise's eyes widened. "That weapon isn't ready." "It's ready enough," Rourke said quietly. "Better to risk the unknown than to die waiting." Deep within the Vengeance, engineers activated the prototype graviton core, a weapon capable of warping space itself. Its energy output spiked dangerously, shaking the entire ship. "All ships fall back to minimum safe distance," Rourke ordered. The alien fleet saw the movement and advanced, thinking humanity was retreating. But as they closed in, the Vengeance's hull glowed with a blinding blue light. "Now!" Rourke shouted. The graviton core unleashed its energy in a silent, expanding sphere. Space itself bent. Alien ships twisted and tore apart as their own gravity crushed them. The explosion created a shockwave of light that spread across the void, scattering the surviving fleets. When the glare faded, the once mighty Tarnak armada was gone. Only debris remained, drifting like ashes after a storm. In the aftermath, the silence was deafening. The human fleet floated in orbit, battered but alive. On every screen, messages of victory appeared. Council fleet destroyed. Humanity holds. Cheering erupted across every base, every ship, every colony. On Earth, people poured into the streets, crying, hugging, shouting humanity's new anthem. "Never again will we bow." Elise walked to the viewport, her reflection lit by the fading blue glow of the graviton field. "It's over," she said softly. Rourke shook his head. "No, it's begun." She turned to him, confused. "They'll come again," he said. "The Council won't forgive this. They'll send everything they have." Elise looked back at the stars. "Then we'll be ready. Because today, humanity rose." In the far reaches of the galaxy, the news of Earth's victory spread faster than light. Alien species living under Council rule whispered to each other about the humans. Those strange creatures who stood against the impossible, and won. And in the grand halls of the Galactic Council, silence reigned. For the first time in centuries, no one laughed. Because the humans, the ones they mocked as weak, had just proven that they were something else entirely, something unstoppable. Humanity had risen and the galaxy would never forget it. The galactic capital had not known silence in centuries. The great domed chamber of the Council, once filled with endless debates and arrogant laughter, now echoed with quiet fear. Holoscreens hovered in the air, displaying scattered footage of burning fleets, wrecked flagships, and drifting alien corpses. Every delegate watched in disbelief. Humanity, the small primitive world they had mocked, had destroyed the Union's armada. The Archon of Varn sat frozen on his crystal throne, his shimmering form dimmed. Around him, dozens of alien ambassadors murmured nervously, voices trembling. "They annihilated 300 ships," hissed the representative of the Dran Collective. "How can a young species achieve such power in so little time?" "They used a weapon that bends space itself," replied another, his tone shaken. "We saw ships crumble like dust. It wasn't technology, it was vengeance." The Archon slammed his staff against the floor, the sound echoing through the chamber. "Enough! They are savages playing with forces they don't understand. They will destroy themselves soon enough." But the silence that followed spoke louder than his words. The Council members no longer looked convinced. In the back of the chamber, the ancient archivist, the same elder who once warned them not to laugh, finally spoke. His voice was quiet, calm, but carried a weight that silenced the room. You all mocked me when I said humanity was dangerous. You thought them weak because they bled easily, because they cried, because they begged. He turned slowly, his glowing eyes meeting the Archon's. But you forgot what comes after their tears. You forgot what happens when humans decide enough is enough. The Archon's jaw tightened. They have defied the Union. Their defiance will bring chaos. The archivist's mouth curved into a faint smile. Yes, and that chaos has already begun. Far from the capital, the Terran fleet drifted in formation near Mars. The glow of their engines reflected off the red planet below. Inside the HNS Vengeance, Admiral Rourke and Commander Elise Ward stood in the strategy room, staring at a holographic projection of the galaxy. Small red markers blinked, worlds under Council control. Now for the first time, some of them were turning blue. What are those? Elise asked. Worlds rebelling against the Council, said Rourke. It's spreading faster than we expected. The Kern, the Saren, even a few Dran colonies, and all sending us messages of support. Elise's brow furrowed. They believe in us? Rourke shook his head. No, they fear them more than us. But fear is enough for now. Messages continued flooding the system, secret transmissions from across the stars. Your victory gives us hope. Help us stand. The Union is not as strong as it looks. The war had begun, not with weapons now, but with ideas. Humanity's defiance had become a symbol. In Earth's capital, crowds gathered beneath the new banner, a blue flame burning over a silver planet. Across continents, leaders met daily, forming the first unified Terran command. Factories worked without rest. Drones carried supplies to orbit. New dreadnoughts rolled off production lines every week. Humanity was no longer building just for survival. They were building for dominance. Elise gave speeches broadcast to every colony and outpost. Her voice became the voice of the new era. They mocked our plea for mercy, she said before billions. But we found strength in that humiliation. Let the galaxy know that humanity will never kneel again. We are not asking for war, but if war comes, we will bring it to their skies. Her words became a vow carved into every soldier's heart. Back in the galactic capital, panic had become policy. Fleets were recalled. Borders closed. The Archon ordered the construction of a new defense network. Billions of credits were poured into rebuilding what humanity had destroyed. But fear was harder to rebuild. The council chamber no longer echoed with laughter, but with accusations. Each species blamed another. It was your spies who underestimated them. Your fleets failed at Mars. You allowed humans to build weapons unchecked. The alliances that had held for centuries began to crack. The Archon tried to control the chaos. We will rebuild and we will crush them, he declared. The humans cannot stand against the combined might of the galaxy. But even as he spoke, news arrived. Another alien fleet had defected. The Saren Dominion, long part of the Union, had signed an agreement with Earth. The Council fell silent again. They're spreading, whispered one delegate. Their ideas are spreading faster than our armies. In orbit above Earth, Rourke stood before his officers. The Council will not stop, he said. They will come again, bigger, stronger, more desperate. But this time we will not wait for them. Elise looked at him. You're planning to strike first. Rourke nodded. Every empire that mocked us will learn what it means to underestimate humanity. We'll hit their shipyards, their fuel lines, their pride. Elise hesitated. And after that? Rourke's voice softened. After that, we'll see who still wants to fight. He turned to his fleet commanders. Prepare Operation Dawnfire. We take the war to them. Within weeks, humanity's vengeance began. Terran ghost ships raided Council convoys, vanishing before pursuit. Human marines stormed outposts and freed enslaved species. Colonies once ruled by fear now flew Earth's banner. For the first time in galactic history, the Council's enemies outnumbered its friends. In one captured transmission, an alien commander's voice was heard screaming in terror. They don't fight like others. They don't stop. They don't run. They burn everything, and even themselves, and to win. That recording spread across 1,000 systems. To some it was horror. To others it was inspiration. Back in the council chamber, the Archon stood before his remaining allies. His tone was no longer arrogant but desperate. "We face extinction if we do not unite," he said. "The humans are not just a species, they are a storm. A fire that consumes everything." But his words came too late. The great empires that once obeyed him now questioned his rule. One by one, they withdrew from the chamber. The mighty Galactic Union, the power that once ruled the stars, was beginning to fracture. The archivist watched them leave, sadness in his eyes. "I warned you," he murmured. "The day you laughed at their plea was the day you sealed your fate." On the Vengeance, Rourke received a transmission from a terrified council world begging for peace. "Do we respond?" Elise asked. Rourke stared at the screen for a long moment, then said quietly, "No. Let them tremble a little longer." He turned to the window, watching the blue flame emblem glowing on his ship's hull. "They wanted to see us kneel," he said. "Now they'll learn to bow." In every corner of the galaxy, the rumor spread, whispered in fear and awe. The humans are coming. And for the first time in the long history of the stars, the galaxy held its breath because the Council no longer ruled. Fear did, and that fear wore the face of humanity. The stars above Vereen Prime, homeworld of the Galactic Council, had never looked so crowded. Thousands of ships filled its orbit, stretching like a metallic ocean. Fleets summoned from every loyal world, armed with the most advanced weapons known to alien kind. Their engines burned white, their banners bright, but beneath the surface, every commander felt the same cold fear. They were waiting for humanity. For months, the Council had rebuilt, gathering its strength for one final stand. The Archon of Varn called it Operation Purity, a cleansing of the galaxy from the human infection. His voice boomed across the command halls. "Today the Union restores its rule. Today we erase the mistake that calls itself Earth." But even as he spoke deep in his crystalline heart, he knew the truth. The galaxy's fear had grown faster than its fleets. Every outpost, every colony, every trading world now whispered the same words in the dark. "The humans are coming." Far beyond the rim, in the cold dark between the stars, the Terran Armada prepared its final march. The fleet was unlike anything ever seen. 10,000 ships, each forged in silence, each carrying the will of an entire species. Dreadnoughts, carriers, stealth destroyers, and autonomous drones moved in formation, their engines glowing faintly blue under the mark of the Sol Flame. On the flagship HNS Vengeance, Admiral Marcus Rourke stood before his officers, hands clasped behind his back. "This is it," he said quietly. "Every insult, every laugh, every betrayal ends here. No more councils. No more masters. We end it tonight." The bridge fell silent. Every officer knew what this meant. No retreat, no negotiation. Humanity was about to strike at the heart of the galaxy. Commander Elise Ward stood beside him, her eyes locked on the holographic projection of Vereen Prime. The planet shimmered under its shield network, surrounded by alien fleets. "Do you think they'll surrender?" she asked softly. Rourke didn't look away. "No, they'll fight until they realize who they're fighting." Hours later, the stars themselves seemed to bend as humanity's fleet emerged from slipspace. To the Council forces, it looked like a storm of light tearing open reality. The human ships appeared in perfect formation, black and silent, their weapons already glowing with lethal power. "Contact. Multiple warp signatures," cried the alien sensor officer. "How many?" demanded his commander. The officer's voice broke. "All of them. All of humanity." Panic swept through the alien lines. Some ships broke formation immediately, firing wildly into the void. Others tried to retreat, but space itself was locked. Human gravity fields folded around them, trapping the fleets like prey. Admiral Rourke opened the comms. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "To the Council of Vereen Prime, this is Admiral Rourke of Earth. Months ago you laughed as we begged for peace. Now we offer you silence. Choose how you meet it." The Archon's face appeared on the screen, his crystalline form flickering with fury. "You dare speak to your superiors this way?" Rourke smiled faintly. "Superiors?" He leaned closer to the camera. "We surpassed you the moment you taught us hate." He gave the order. "All ships, open fire." The void exploded. Thousands of beams cut through space, ripping apart the alien blockade in seconds. Human railguns fired magnetic slugs the size of buildings. Missiles danced between debris like streaks of lightning. Alien ships disintegrated, shields collapsing under the relentless precision of human firepower. The sky above Vereen Prime became a storm, beautiful and horrifying. The aliens tried to rally. Their battleships formed defense rings, pouring plasma fire toward the human fleet. But the Terrans didn't fight like them. They adapted faster. Every time the aliens changed formation, humanity adjusted in seconds, striking where they least expected. In the council chamber, the Archon shouted orders while the building shook. Bring the planetary cannons online. Target their flagship. A massive beam of red energy shot from the surface, striking the Vengeance. The entire ship shuddered. Alarms wailed. Fires erupted across the decks. Shields down to 40%. Lieutenant Park shouted. Rourke didn't flinch. Focus all batteries on the surface weapon. Target coordinates locked? Locked, sir. Fire. The Dreadnought's main cannon unleashed a white beam brighter than dawn. It cut through clouds, through the planet's defenses, and pierced the Council's grand tower from base to crown. The explosion lit the sky like a second sun. From orbit, Elise watched as the capital city burned. Her face was pale, but her voice steady. It's over. Rourke's eyes stayed fixed on the flames. Not yet. The galaxy must hear what happens to those who laugh at Earth. Transmission signals pulsed across every frequency. The Terran fleet broadcasted one message, a single recording of the Council's destruction, accompanied by Rourke's voice. This is humanity's answer. We asked for peace and you mocked us. We asked for unity, and you enslaved others. You called us children of chaos. Now you see what chaos can create. Remember this day because there will never be another like it. The Council has fallen. The age of humanity begins. Across the galaxy, billions watched in silence. On worlds once loyal to the Union, rulers trembled. On colonies long oppressed, slaves cheered. For the first time in galactic history, the seat of power had been overturned. Not by age or diplomacy, but by sheer will. When the fires dimmed and the last alien fleet fled into the void, Rourke finally gave the order. Ceasefire. No more blood. Elise turned toward him. You did it. You actually did it. Rourke's expression softened. No, we did. Every miner, every builder, every pilot who refused to die quietly, they did this. He looked out through the viewport. The once proud planet of Vereen Prime now hung broken beneath them, a cracked jewel adrift in darkness. History will call us monsters, Elise whispered. Rourke nodded slowly. Maybe, but even monsters deserve justice. Weeks later, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The Galactic Union was gone. In its place rose the Terran Alliance, a coalition of free worlds led by humanity. The blue flame flag flew above embassies and spaceports from the core to the outer rim. But the victory was not celebrated with parades or songs. Humanity had seen too much, lost too many. Entire generations had vanished in the war. The cost of freedom was written in stars and ashes. Still, across the endless night, one truth burned brighter than ever. No one mocked Earth again. In the quiet of his quarters, Admiral Rourke recorded his final message. To the next generation, remember what we were. We rose because they scorned us. We fought because they left us no choice. But never forget, we were once the ones begging. Let this victory remind you that mercy is stronger than pride, because one day another world will beg before us. And when that happens, I hope we listen. He ended the recording and looked out into the infinite dark. The galaxy was silent now. The kind of silence that follows thunder. Humanity had risen, and the stars themselves seemed to bow in quiet respect. The laughter that once echoed through the Council's halls was gone forever, and in its place, the universe remembered one truth carved in fire and fury: never mock the children of Earth.